Hello and welcome to my video all about how to knit the Quatrefoil eyelet or tulip lace pattern. It seems to be known by a few different names, but it's a fairly simple diamond lace pattern that's a very popular technique. The first thing you need to do is cast on a multiple of 8 stitches and then add another 7. So for instance, 2 times 8, which is 16, plus 7 is 23. I've cast on 23 stitches for this pattern, but I've also cast on an additional 8 stitches because I'm going to be putting a 4-stitch border around the outside. This is purely because the bulk of the pattern is made up of stockinette stitch which curls at the edges, so having a border just stops that curling. Because I'm adding a border, at the beginning and end of every row I'm going to be doing 4 knit stitches. And that's in addition to the actual tulip lace pattern. So if you do want a border, then add those knit stitches, and if you don't, then just ignore me and leave those knit stitches out. As you can see, I've already started with 4 rows of knit stitches to begin my garter stitch border. The actual tulip lace pattern itself begins with 1 knit row. So that's what I'm now going to begin with. So that's knit stitches all the way along. And now we're on to row number 2, which, along with all other even numbered rows, is just a purl row. However, as you know, because I'm adding a garter stitch border, I'm going to be adding 4 knit stitches to the beginning and end of every row, and that includes every even numbered row. So for this purl row, I'm going to be doing 4 knit stitches, then purling until I only have 4 stitches left, and then doing 4 knit stitches to finish. If you don't want a border, obviously it's just going to be a purl row for you. Okay, so now we're on to row number 3, which for me begins with 4 knit stitches. And then we get on to the actual pattern section, which begins with 3 knit stitches. Then we're on to the repeating section of the row, which begins with a yarn over. To do this yarn over, all you have to do is take the working yarn from behind the needles, between the needles to the front. You then need to do an SSK decrease. So you slip a stitch knitwise by taking the right hand needle up through the top stitch as if to knit, and then just slipping it off the end of the needle. And then you just do that again. Then insert your left hand needle into the front of those 2 slipped stitches and knit them together. And that reduces the number of stitches by 1 because it's a single decrease. SSKs are often paired with yarn overs because yarn overs are single increases and SSKs are single decreases, and they balance each other out. We then finish the repeating section with 6 knit stitches. You then repeat that section over and over until you only have 4 stitches remaining on the left hand needle, or if you're doing a border, you have 8 stitches remaining on the left hand needle. So that section again is yarn over, then SSK, so slip a stitch knitwise, and then another, and then knit those slipped stitches together, and then knit 6. You then need to yarn over, SSK, and knit 2. Then of course if you're doing the border, you do 4 knit stitches to finish. And then we're on to row number 4, which remember is a purl row. If you're doing a border, remember to put 4 knit stitches at the beginning and the end of the row. And then we're on to row number 5. Again, I do 4 knit stitches for the border, And then the lace pattern starts with 1 knit stitch. Then we're on to the repeating section of row number 5, which begins with a K2 tug. So that's a knit 2 together. So you take your right hand needle up through the top 2 stitches on the left hand needle and knit them together. You then do a yarn over, so take the yarn from the back to the front and then knit 1. We then do another yarn over, so the yarn goes from the back to the front and then we do an SSK and then we knit 3 stitches. And that's the end of the repeating section. And now we simply repeat that section over and over again until we only have 6 stitches remaining on the left hand needle, or 10 stitches remaining if you're doing a border. So to do that section again, we do a K2 tug, a yarn over, a knit 1, a yarn over, an SSK, and 3 knit stitches. And then once you have 6 or 10 stitches remaining, you do a K2 tug, then a yarn over, 1 knit stitch, a yarn over, an SSK, and then 1 knit stitch. If you're doing a border, you then do 4 additional knit stitches. And that's row 5 completed. Row 6 is a purl row with or without a border. And row 7 is exactly the same as row 3. Since I've already shown you how to do that row, I'm just going to put the pattern for row 7 up on the screen now. And then row 8 is a purl row with or without the border. And then row 9 is simply a row of knit stitches all the way across. Row 10 is the usual purl row. And then we're on to row number 11, which, as always, I'm starting with 4 knit stitches. And then the actual lace pattern starts with 7 knit stitches. So that's K7 to begin. Then the repeating section starts with a yarn over, and then an SSK, and then 6 knit stitches. I think this row is a particularly easy one, and you just need to repeat yarn over, SSK and K6 until you get to the end of the row, unless you're doing a border, in which case you repeat it until you have 4 stitches left, which you then just knit. And then row 12 is just the normal purl row. And then we're on to row number 13. Again, I do the border stitches, and then the lace pattern starts with 5 knit stitches. And then we're on to the repeating section, which begins with a K2 tug. So you just knit 2 together, then do a yarn over, then knit 1, yarn over, SSK, and knit 3. And then just knit that repeating section over and over until you only have 2 stitches remaining, or 6 stitches remaining if you're doing a border. So again, that's K2 tug, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, SSK, knit 3. And so on. The last 2 stitches of the pattern are just knit stitches. So you K2 to finish. Or if you're doing a border, you knit 6. And then row 14 is the usual purl row. And row 15 is the same as row 11. Since I've already shown you how to do row number 11, I'm just going to put the pattern up for row number 15 on the screen now so you can follow along. And then finally, you'll be pleased to hear we're on to the last row of the pattern repeat, which is row number 16. And because it's an even numbered row, you just do the usual purl row. And that's it, that's the 16 row pattern repeat completed. And here is the finished result. I really hope you've enjoyed knitting this lace pattern, and thank you very much for watching.